So we are saying that this data set has been brought in, the different tabs that we have within that workbook has been brought in. This first one, the fruit list, tells us if we click on the source, the clock wheel, we can see the file path. Okay, it's in my C drive, which is the Wumi. That's what I used in my OneDrive under documents, and then the name of the workbook, my work fruit exercise coursework. That's the name of it. So that was brought in. The next step is the navigation. In this navigation, we brought all of these tables in actually, but it is highlighting fruit list at the moment because that's where I'm opening this from. Okay, so that is brought in as fruit list. Then immediately this came, it did a change type. Okay, now this change type is not valid. Okay, change type is what happens when the data types are changed. Okay, if I go back to here, you see all of the columns, it's not too sure if these are 1, 2, 3 or ABC. And that's because, see, row 1 here, all the headers are in row 1. So this column 1, column 2, column 3 are not our actual headers, okay? And so because within this column, it is seeing fruit ID, which is in text, and it's also seeing 1, 2, 3, which is number. It's confused as to which is it. Is it ABC or 1, 2, 3? So because of that, we have both ABC and 1, 2, 3 here. And I believe that's how we have it for all of the different columns, ABC 1, 2, 3. So there's confusion. It's not assigning a particular data type to them. So the next step, it tried to change the data type for some. Okay, so it's decided here that because of the text fruit ID here, so this has to be a text column. This also has to be a text column, but it's still confused as to what these other ones should be, okay? But I'm going to remove that step because that step at this point is not necessary. And it's not necessary because not until we have our headers as headers, this row 1 needs to jump to the top where we have all this column 1, column 2. It's after that is done that we will need to change the data type. So this happening here is just a misnomer. So I'll delete that step, okay? And now we went on, okay? Because at this point, the headers are in first row. We said, okay, we need to promote this first row to become the column headers. And that's why that's what we did. And how did we do that? What we did was under home, we came under home. And if you come under transform section, this is the use first row as headers. That is use this first row as the header. But I mean, if you click on that arrow there, there's 2 of them. The first one being use first row as headers. The second one says use headers as first row. So you can promote and demote the first row as you need. It depends on what you are confronted with in your data set. Just as you can bring this first row to the top and make them headers, you can also bring anything from the top and demote them to first row. That's what that function is for. So we went on to say use the first row as headers. That is, this row 1, jump it up for us. So that's what happened in the next step. If I click on the next step, then everything you had on row 1 now became the headers as it should be. So fruit ID, fruit name, fruit cost, and all of that, they jumped up and became the headers. And we have our proper row 1, which is fruit ID 1, fruit ID 2, and so on. Okay, still, their data types have not yet been determined. And that's what then happened in the next step. The next step says changed type 1. I put 1 because we had a change type, which I deleted here. Normally that 1 should not be there, but that's fine. Now we change type. We decided that our fruit ID can be is whole number. So 1, 2, 3. Then the fruit name is text. The fruit cost is whole number in pence. In pounds is decimal number. And how were we changing? We were clicking in the corner and choosing from this list, whatever it is you need, you choose from that list. And that's how, and this one that looks like you've crossed something out, you've also ticked it. It answers to the data type true, false, yes, no, anything that goes opposite, word and opposite is just those two values that are repeated in the column. This is what it is. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it well, but it's something like Boolean or Boolean, I don't know, but that's how it's spelled anyway. So that's the nature of this data type, okay? And that's what we have for the rest of the columns here, okay? And then the next step, because we see that we've got empty columns, or 1 is empty column, it's just this one. And I believe we removed this as well. What's this one? Yeah, this is also not relevant. So we removed these last 2 empty columns, and that was done in the last step, okay? And now we don't have any missed value. We can see these green lines are complete for all of them. So we are good here, okay? Then sales order, we've looked in the same way. I'm not going to repeat what has been done with fruit list. In the same way, we brought this in, promoted headers, change type, remove columns that were not necessary. That's all the steps that are there, okay? And team list went through the same thing, okay? We brought it in, picked team list, promoted headers, and we did our change type, okay? And this is the task, the task that we have. And was it yesterday we were talking about distinct and unique values, and that can be explained more on yes, it is here under column distribution. You see, we said we can use all these functions here to look into our data and see what it actually looks like. Column quality will tell you how much of your column is valid, how much of it has error, how much is empty. That goes on across board. So that way you can look at the quality of the data set that you are working with, using that. Column distribution tells you about the, we call it cardinality, of your column. How many values are distinct? How many are unique? Okay. Distinct is all of the values you have in that column. Okay. But the unique ones are the ones that appear just once. Anything that's appearing just once is unique. Okay. I'm looking for which of them to use. Okay, product count. What this is telling us is saying that we have 950 distinct and 902 unique. What that means is that all the values here, 902 of them appear just once. But if you count all the values that are here, those that appear once so, and those that appear more than once so, all of the values you have here is 950. That's what this is saying, okay? Fruit ID is saying we have 94 distinct and 0 unique. What that means is that there is no value here that appear just once. All of them are repeated, okay? And 94 distinct means that if you count all of the values we have here, we have 94 values that are repeated. It's not saying we have 94 rows. We have more than 94 rows, okay? Because they are repeated, okay? But when we count them, it's just 94 values that keep repeating itself here. That's what that means, okay? And this is quite peculiar. Total cost. Total cost, this is, we have 996 values that are unique, which means 996 values appear once. They are not repeated. But in this whole column, if you count those that are repeated and those that are not repeated, if you count them, there is 998 values. Okay. However many times that they are repeated, all of them are 998. It doesn't mean that we have 998 rows. No, we have more than 1,000 rows, okay, in this. But when you count them, there's 998 rows. Some of them are repeated, some of them are not repeated. Okay, we'll keep hammering on distinct and unique values until we finally, it becomes second nature, you know, to us. There's not much happening in team list that I could use, you know, to explain. Okay, fruit cost. When we look at this fruit cost, it says we have 55 unique. Again, that means 55 numbers are appearing once. They are not repeated. But all of the numbers that are represented here, whether they are appearing once or they are appearing more than once, we have 73 values. I hope that makes sense. So then we decided that fruit list and team list, those are our dimension table or lookup table, while sales order is our transaction table. And that's because this is where the transaction has been recorded. We can see that money has exchanged hand. We see there's profit, there's selling, there's buying. We see the people that sold and bought. Okay, so transaction was carried out on this table. So that makes this table our fact table or transaction table. We did say that one of the dimension table that we need, which doesn't necessarily come with this data set, but we can create it for ourselves. And we do that because it's standard practice. That is our date table. Okay, we need to create our date table. There was a method we used when we were doing Northwind. Okay, but I think we should use another method for creating the one that we want to create now. Okay, we can use what we call DAX. Okay, but before we go to DAX, anytime you have newly loaded your set of tables into Power BI, okay, you land on the report page, which is this your Canva, where you draw all the drawings. That is where you put all the different visuals. That's the Canva. Okay, but the next step down shows you the table view. And when you hover on that, you can see that tiny pop-up there. It says table view. This is where you can view your tables as table. Okay, we can see the fruit list, the sales order, all the columns in it, our task description that we brought in, and the team list. And the next down is your model view. This is where relationships are created. Okay, we explained the concept of one-to-many. Okay, and the one-to-many relationships or many-to-one, they are the same thing. It's always the relationship that the best relationship, easiest, simplest that you should aim for to use, especially when your data, when your report is still like a baby, still small, because chances are that as time goes by, that report will be getting more complex. So when you start simple, it will get better even as your data or your reporting gets complex. If I right click on this, we go into properties, you know, and we can see a few more insights into what is happening here. Okay, edit relationship, select tables and columns that are related. Okay, sales order and team list. That's what I clicked on, the relationship between them. We can see that where they are related, the column that relates both of them is highlighted for each table. This is sales order table. This is team order table. It says from table sales order to table team list. Use these two columns, which is the same for each one of them. Okay. And it says cardinality. Cardinality is something that means relationship in a way. Okay. And the different relationship forms that we can have, we have many to one, which is what we currently have. That is, many to one means, I'll cancel that for a second so that we can see. Many to one rather means, if I hover on this, salesperson appear on the team list just once, because that's the primary, where it is a primary key. So it's appearing here just once. It's unique. Okay. But when we come on sales order, the same salesperson name appear many times. The salesperson can make sales at different points on this table where orders are created. That's the meaning of many. That's why it's many here, but it is one here. Okay. So just so we understand where that many to one to many is coming from. Okay. So these are the different relationships that we can form. We have many to one to many. Okay. No, sorry, many to one, which we have seen. We have one to one. You know, sometimes both sides of the table, the values appear just once on each of the two tables. There's nothing you can do about that. That's what the relationship would form. Sometimes it's one to many. Many to one and one to many, they tend to behave the same way, you know. It's just telling us the direction of the relationship. That is the arrow, again, let me come out of that. The arrow, the direction of the arrow, okay? We see the arrow flowing from one to many, you know, from this one to many, okay? That's what it is. But in terms of how they behave, the many to one or one to many are the same thing, okay? So those two can be interchangeable, okay? Then we have many to many. This is a situation where on this side of the table, this salesperson is appearing many times. It's also appearing many times on the other table, okay? It's not ideal, but there are instances where these happen, okay? So that's the meaning. And the cross filter direction, what's the direction in which filtering is happening? Because the essence of all this relationship is so that the tables can filter each other. The essence of they talking to each other is that they are filtering through one another, okay? The direction of filter of this is in one direction. That's a single filtering that's happening there. Sometimes it's not single. Sometimes you have both ways. If I put both ways there, let me see. And I say save. Let's see. You see, it changes it to that. That is, filtering can happen from this table to this table and also from this table to this table. Okay, so that's the meaning of all the different things we see. I'll change that back to what it should be. Okay, so, and we know why our task description is not in the show, because we just brought this in to remind ourselves of what we are actually doing. You know, it's not relevant to the report outside the fact that we need to refer to it. Okay, is there any question around this data modeling, the relationships, and how this works? Something I haven't mentioned, I believe was mentioned on Monday, is also that the type of schema that we have created, you know, this is called star schema. Star schema is when is a situation where your lookup tables are all of them are directly speaking to the fact table. It's not like we have a table that is, you know, just that is linked to the fruit list, for example, now, that is not directly talking to the sales order. When you have that sort of situation, that's a star schema. Okay, I don't know if I have at some point showed us what a star schema is. If not, we'll get to it. So we have what we call the star schema and the snowflake. Snowflake is if we had another table, say around here, that is linked to this team list and not directly to the sales order. Okay, so like what's the best? Try and imagine a family now where you have the father and you have the mother holding the father, and each of the children are directly holding the father. The father is in the middle. That's the star schema. But in a situation where you have the father in the middle, you have some children holding the dad directly, the wife holding the husband as well directly. But you have one or two children that prefer to hold the mother and not hold their father directly. So those ones are snowflaking. They are flaking away from the main source, so to say. That's the best picture I can paint for us, but we'll look at it as well uh, in a more graphical form at some point. Okay, so I think at this point we can then start within the few minutes that we have, we can start to answer our questions. A few things to note. We know what all this, what the sales order table shows, what the fruit list shows, what the team list shows. Something we must remember is that it says that the team list shows the reporting hierarchy of the salespeople and the percentage commission they earn on sales with profit over 1,000. So only those that have profit over 1,000 would those are the ones we would apply their profits, their commission rather. Those are the ones that will have their commission, and commission, we see profit here, but we have commission on the team list. You see why the tables need to talk to each other, because those two we need to use together. We need to at some point calculate, using this commission amount, calculate where profits for each salesperson now, where profit is more than 1,000. Okay. Also, we need to remember that it says that we shouldn't consider where exception of sales is true. Okay, so, okay, I remember that where it is blank, we put false there. That was the one that was misbehaving. So if we go back so that we don't have these blank cells, if we go back into the query and put that last step back, we change the nulls or the blank spaces to false. Yeah, I'm just gonna click on one of them and we say, I right-clicked by the way, right-clicked on one of them, replace value, and it brings this dialog box. It says value to find null. It's already brought the null because I clicked on a null. Sometimes if you don't, you will need to type the null like that yourself. And we should note that this is case sensitive. If you type this in capital letter, I won't recognize it. Okay, what do we want to replace? We replace it with, I want to say false. Okay, and I click OK. So that changes things up for us. So we have true and false. Where this is true, what that is telling us is that where that is true, we won't be needing it in our actual calculation because you see all the profits here are negative. It's going to bring and that's me jumping to conclusion, by the way, it's going to bring our value down with all these negatives. So I'm glad that we are instructed not to use that. So I'm going to delete that last where I filtered the rows, and close and apply this back. So we should, yes, we should have that loaded as false, yes. That's correct. Now, back to our instruction list, task description. Okay. Yeah. Two things to note, like I said, percentage commission only for those with profit over 1,000. Any other with exception flag, that is where the exception flag is true, should not be included in profit calculation. Now, question 1, total profit for the month by team leader. Now, when we did not win, we just dragged, this was what we did, and we did not win. And I did that because I didn't want to introduce us to how to calculate at the time just yet. So we just went on to choose any visual, and it says profit by team leader. So we go into the profit, and you see, it's good to talk about these different columns that we have. You see some of the columns have some icons by their side. This date, it tells us that it's recognized data type as a date. You see this sigma sign or summation sign, it's telling us that it recognizes that these are numbers that can be summed. That's why you have that, okay? And the sign by this is that this is a table, okay? Task description is a table, team list is a table, you know, and so on and so forth. That's what all of these stand for, okay? And I remember just now that I said we will create a table, just a date table, just before we create a date table. What we did when we did not trend was we just, went on to drag. So total profit, I click on total profit. Then I come to team list. It says team leader. So I click on team leader, and I have that. And that was simple, easy, and nothing's wrong with doing this. Okay, so that's completely answers the question, total profit for the month by team leader. Let's not forget that all of the data we are dealing with is just for the January month anyway, so it's just for 1 month. So there's no need to force over for the month, okay? So total profit for the month by team leader, and that there we have it. By team leader, sum of total profit by team leader. There we can see this is what we call comparison analysis, okay? We can see by the different bars or columns, bars that we have. Luke has the highest by far, and the other two, Gary and Yvette, are quite close, but Gary is second. We can see that. So there's nothing wrong in doing this. However, the standard or better practice is to create what we call measures, okay? We need to create something we call measures. And these are done using DAX, data analysis expression, DAX, X for xylophone, okay? That is the language of Power BI calculation, okay? It's just like if you have done calculation in Excel, it's not too far off, okay? So again, another good practice, just for organization purpose, if I decide to create my measure on any of these tables, especially on the sales order, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So by clicking on the 3 dots on each of the table, you can see a lot of different options. You can see new measure. Measure is what I just spoke about. It is like a calculation that you create, but it is virtual. It is not physically residing in your data, which means it can float. It depends on how well you create your data model. It can float around between the different tables, okay? Then you can create new column. Say, for example, this sales order, we just discovered that we need a column here for whatever reason. I can come here and say I need a new column, and I will create it. If I click on new column, the formula bar just opens up, and I can type. And can you see, even without me typing, it's added the new column on here. I just need to give it a name and give it the expression that I want to use. And that is it created, you know.
Sorry,
So
excuse me.
yes.
Please. I notice this total profit. Why are we having zero all through?
It's not all true. It's for some. And
Okay.
and if we profit was calculated, I wish that we would have done it by ourselves. Okay. And I think I might actually do that. Profit is calculated by taking away total cost from total sale. When you say sale price minus cost price equals profit, all these ones are zero because see, sale amount is exactly the same as cost. So if I buy something for 1,680 pounds 63, and I decide to sell it for the same amount, which means I haven't made any profit. That's why all of these are zero. And that's the explanation down there, for all the zeros. But we've got others that are not zero. Okay. So we've even got some that are negative. That is, they sold at a loss. Maybe they bought something for 10 pounds, decide to sell it for 5 pounds. That is somebody that has made a 5 pound loss. But we've got positive numbers here. Okay. So it's a mix of zeros, negatives, and a lot of positive numbers that we've got within this data. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying there is nothing wrong at all in dragging straight from there. We've got total profit, we've got total cost, and that's you done. Okay. But a better practice is, okay, to, come on the side of the table and create a measure. Okay. Okay. And I showed previously that you can actually create new column. Because I didn't type anything in what we saw earlier, that disappeared, which is fine. I was just using it for illustration purpose. Now, measures, they don't come on your table. They are just like floating calculation. So let's start. We'll create simple ones. So I'll click on new measure. And all I want to do is just sum up all our total cost, total profits, total sales. Okay. So I'll say total cost equals sum. Immediately after you type your equal, you can type the summation or whatever function. It will come up. Now IntelliSense makes it come up. If it doesn't come up, then there's a problem. This, immediately I typed S, everything that starts with S, we can see these are all functions. That's why they have fx beside them, function of x. Okay. And then I type the next, it reduces to those that have su, substitute, substitute within index. Then I type m. We only have all of those that are sum. And so that's the one. I just press tab to choose sum. Okay, and it's asking me, what do I want to sum? What I want to sum is in my sales order, so I'll type is an S, so that I'm not looking too far down the different list that it has brought. And total cost, so which means I want the cost, so sales order cost. Now let's explain what we are seeing. Immediately I put S in that bracket, it brings the table that starts with S, which is sales order. Then it now lists all the columns that are there for me. Like, which one of these do you want to choose? Okay. Now it's total cost that I want to choose. I can see it here. So I choose it and I close my bracket. Before I close that bracket, can you see that the dialog box on top where it says sum in bracket column name? Again, just like Excel, it's prompting me that what this formula is expecting is a column that can be summed. Okay, so it's all part of a kind of a guide. You can press enter or you can use this commit. Okay, saying I should rename the measure, right? It's telling me to rename the measure because in the table, in the sales order table, we already have total cost as a name. So it's not going to repeat the same name. So I'm going to put that as total underscore cost. Okay, total underscore cost. And that should be better. Okay, so if we look down here, that is my calculation, total underscore cost. And you see the difference between the total cost we have here and the total cost, they're actually the same in figure. I will show us. The only difference is that, see, this one has a calculator by the side. The calculator means this has been calculated. That is, I calculated it. So that is a sign showing to someone who is not really familiar with this data. When they see, they will see that, okay, this was a measure that was calculated, that was calculated. But these ones that have E sign, this is my summation sign. These ones that they came originally with the data. Okay, that's the difference. All right. Okay, now I said something. I said both of them are actually the same. If I choose a card visual, okay, and I drop my total cost, the original total cost in that, it gives us that. I click out, I get another card visual. And the total cost I just calculated, I drop it there. You see, they are the same. That's why I said that this visual, if you decide to just drag and drop, like I don't want any stress, I can't be calculating, your answer will not be wrong. It's just become a good practice. So this total cost that I've calculated, I can use it and reuse it for so many other purposes. Okay, so that's why there was need for me to do it. Okay, and I will do the same for total sales as well. Okay, so I'll say new measure, this time total underscore sales equals sum. I'll click on sales and this sales amount. I close my bracket and you can press enter, all that. So that gives total sales. I'm just gonna copy and paste now to do the profit. Control C and do another measure. So Control V, but this time is my total profit, is it? Yes, total profit. So I'll modify that and put profits there. And also change total sales amount to, what I need is profit. So total profits, that comes up as well. My bracket is closed already, so I have that. You see. So I'm going to save what has been done so far. So those are all our three measures that we want to create. Those are all our three measures done. I can also create something we call profit margin. But you see, let's not forget something. We've been told to only calculate profit. This is where our calculation is going to get a little tiny wee bit complex. Team list, not team list, has a description, says that we should, any orders with exception flag on the sales order are not to be included in any profit calculation. So we need to consider this when we are calculating our profit. It says that where the exception flag is true, we should remove it from our profit calculation. But so far, that's not what we have done. With this, let me remove total cost from here and put total profit. With this total profit, you see, we've calculated everything, both where the exception flag is saying it is false and true. We just went on to calculate everything. So we need to factor that instruction in. Okay, it says that where the exception sales is true, don't calculate their profit. Okay, let me see how true has been written here. Okay, it's been written like that. So we need to go back into that profit calculation now. Okay. Note that what we have here currently is this. And we also, like we did before, we also, okay, let me remove this. Let me use this one. So let's use the total profits that came with the data set. You see that they are both, this is the one I calculated. And you can see the difference from what you have underneath. Okay, the sum of total profit, this is from the data set originally. Total underscore profit, this is the one I calculated. They are both the same right now, but we need to change that total profit calculation the way it has been calculated, because we are told something now that where the sales exception is true, don't bring it in. Okay, so I need to introduce just one layer of function to this to make that possible. Okay, I need to use the calculate. This calculate function helps us to modify our calculation in the way that we need it to calculate. So this is helping us to introduce a kind of filter. You know, I want to filter out certain information from this calculation. So I'm using calculate. I'm saying calculate sum of total profit, okay? But look at what it says. It says calculate expression, comma, then put your filter. So I'm going to put comma. Now it's highlighted the filter, like what filter do you want to apply? So I'm going to say where sales, and is bringing all the columns in sales. Okay, if this, again, if you are typing and this doesn't happen, something is not right. It has to come up. Okay, I'm looking for sales exception. If you find it, okay, there we go. Sales exception. So we need it for where it is false. Okay, where it is false. So where equals, I want to type false, but for me to type text in a formula, just like in Excel, you have to quote it in quotation mark like that. So this is what this means. I am saying calculate sum of total profits where the exception sales is false. Okay. And I'll close my bracket and I'll commit that. Okay. It says error fetching the data. Okay, I'll close this, remove it, and bring it back in. Total profits. There's error fetching the data. Why is there error? Let me see what I'm not doing right. The instruction says any others with an exception flag. Now, exception flag is true for any other with an exception flag. Then I'll go into my table, exception sales. This is the exception flag. But I'm not only calculating for where it is false. So why is it behaving like a, because this
check the brackets.
Can we do what?
The brackets, are they complete?
Okay. Or even if it's not complete, supposed to correct it. So we have brackets open and close for the sum here. Then we have the other bracket here. So bracket is complete. Bracket is complete. Error fetching the data for this visual. See details. Sometimes it's good to see details, but calculating error in measure, sales order, comparison operations do not support comparing values of the type true or false with value of the type text. Consider using the value. Okay, I need to format this. Consider using the value of format function to convert these to, okay, you see, sometimes it's good to read the error message that it's sending you. It's telling me that and it shouldn't be doing that, to be honest, but it's telling me that I'm trying to calculate number and comparing with texts, and that I shouldn't be doing that. So that I should be involving a formatting, that I should format my answer. I should look for a way to bring formatting into this and format it as a value. So it's saying consider using the value or format function to convert one of the values, which again I believe is wrong. It shouldn't be saying that. But anytime I'm hit with something like this, what I just do, I just go into my chart.
Sorry, can I suggest something?
Yes.
Rather than making it false or true, why not just convert it to 0 or 1, give it the number?
Okay, that's a good way to go about it, to be honest. That is absolute. Let's do what you just said. But I was going to say, anytime I hit something like that, just go to chat and tell chat what I'm trying to do, and it will sort it for me. But let's do what Mr. Musa just said, and that would definitely, I'm sure, solve the problem. So if we go back into our Power Query and decide that true is 1 and false is 0, so we use 0, 1, then we should be fine. So we're saying we're going to say that convert. Okay, actually, I'll go into this convert here and put 0 so that I'm not adding too many steps. Oh, why? Enter a logical, oh, sheesh. Enter a logical value.
Excuse me, are we really allowed to alter our data sets?
Yes, you are not altering the data set. You are changing this to help your own work. Remember
Okay.
that this true or false is not going to appear in your final result. What they want is the final result, which we are trying to get. So however you get to that final result, just ensure that your answer is right. So this is like your own, it's like you are doing maths and you have a paper where you do your working out. That's exactly what we are doing right now. So you are not altering the data from the original data source. The data is what it is. But within your Power Query, there's a lot you will do with it. What I am not altering is the total profits that they actually got. Do you understand now? I'm not adding my own customer name to it, you see, but I need to put a step in that helps me to move forward so that I'm not hitting a brick wall. That's what this part is about. Why? 1. It's not letting us. If I change this to text and do it. Okay. You see that you just have to keep trying different things. So what did I press 0? Is that a 0? I put a B and O. It's a 0. Okay. Okay. And I can look for true as well. So replace value. I want to believe true has been changed to this.
This thing is strange.
Is what?
Is it not ABC that is on top on the column header?
We will change it. We'll change it.
Oh, okay.
It's because I look at the steps.
Okay.
It's because before we had this as the Boolean, yeah, but it wasn't in that format. It wasn't allowing me to change value. So I changed it to text first. In changing it to text, it then allowed me to do what I need to do, which is change false to 0 and true to 1. So the only things we now have, and because that was in the text, in the text format, it retained the text format, but I can now change that to 1 and 2 if I want, and I do want, so I'll change this to whole number. Can you see now? 1, 2, 3. So you now have your 0 and 1, and that calculation should be, you see, when they say that in doing the job, you have to be able to problem solve. You're working, a problem arose, you have to look for a way around it. So thank you for suggesting that, Mr. Musa. That was a good one. So now what this means is that my sales order exception, we said false, and false is 0. So I can put equals 0 here, and that should work. You see? This worked. Everybody clap for Mr. Musa. That was a good thinking on your toes, they call it. That's a strategic thinking we saw right there. Okay, so now total profits when we did everything was at 11.16. And remember that where the exception flag was true, they were all negatives, which means they brought the profits down. But when we removed all of those negatives and we have this now, our profit is a bit higher than when it was like that. What we've done so far, does it make sense? We need to round up because it's 8. So far, does it? Thank God we recorded it anyway. But the 2 new concepts, not 2, but not 2, just the 1 new concept we've seen today is just that calculation bit. And we have to get used to it. First, we did something simple, which is just sum of this, okay? And we should do more of that, okay? But and then the total cost is just the sum. But we had to do a step higher, which I'm glad we did, because there's need to not do the normal with the total profit. There was a condition that needed to be met. And that's why we introduced the calculate. Now, one singular most important function in the DAX world is this calculate. Calculate help you to maneuver in different forms around how you want to get what you need to get. Okay, because it introduces you to being able to filter your calculation in a way that it suits what you are trying to achieve. Okay, and we'll be doing more of this. Okay, I won't be surprised if this part is a bit confusing. That's fine. We'll repeat and repeat and repeat until we get used to it. But I would implore us to try and do the much that we have done today. Okay, so if this visual now, instead of using total profit, that I used earlier, if I take that total profit out and put the total profits that we now have, let's see how that alters anything. Okay, we still have Luke, Gray, Gary, and Yvette. Okay, Luke being the most. It's just, I believe the values would have increased more because now we've removed all the negatives that they would have had. Okay, so I'll take these out and I'll leave these because we are going to need our KPIs. Okay, the KPI cards, I use card for KPI. So I'll have total sales, which is that. This is profits. All of those will be displaying on top. We'll format those nicely. And then we'll have the total cost as well that we've had in this month of January. I'll put that from the what's it called? So that's total sales, the total cost. And then tomorrow, by God's grace, we will calculate profit margin. If somebody can come with profit margin calculation or the formula rather, that would help. Then we'll display those the way that we want to display them. But yes, we are starting to do our analysis. So at a glance, they can see this is the total sales that was made. This is how much it cost, you know, to put products in place. This is how much we sold everything we sold for. And this is the profit from it. I hope a class is not waiting to start now. Are people coming in for a class? And then we can put quantity as well. Very quickly, we can calculate total quantity, just the sum. Okay, so total quantity, so that we can see how much of the products or how many of the products gave us that. Again, sum is the sales order, and we need the total product, I think, is the product count. Product count. Okay, so we can bring that there as well. So I'll put total quantity. We see how calculator is there. So we'll format these ones to look nicer at some point, but this is what we currently have. And tomorrow, like I said, let's bring, I forgot that we're meant to be doing our date table. So tomorrow, date table, profit margin will need to come in, you know, and then we'll see where we go from there. I want to say thanks to, let me save it. Thanks to everyone for your patience and for your time.